I think that today we have a very strange relationship with learning, knowledge, and wisdom, because we carry around the collective intelligence of the human race in our pockets and the collective stupidity, let's be real. And I think that oftentimes that access skews our perception between what we think we know and what we absolutely know, because we can just look it up, right? Well, that's why I'm a huge proponent of going out and training. Now, whether that is going to the range a couple times a week, every other week, something like that, and practicing with your weapon, or going to an organized course put on by a competent professional instructor that can push your limits. I think they both have their uses, and sometimes one is better than the other depending on what it is that we're talking about. And I'm a huge proponent of people participating in that. However, let's be real. Ammo ain't cheap. Nobody's got extra money these days. And I feel like every generation probably says that, but it's especially painful these days to go out and blow thousands of dollars on ammunition. So that's why today we're going to be talking about a company that we've covered here previously many times. In fact, I think we've done probably every single product that they have on offer, and that is Mantis. So let me get you open here and show you what we have on the table here today. This is the Mantis. See what I did there? TitanX. And initially this presents as a training pistol. This is an entirely inert pistol. You can't put live ammunition in it. It also has these weighted magazines that try to mimic the weight of loaded magazines. We'll come back to that here in a second. There are two of them in the case, and then like a cable and some information, and of course this nice case here. We'll go ahead and get the case off of the table and bring our focus in right here. So initially, this just presents as a pistol that has trigger squeeze capability, but you'll see right there, even though this mimics a normal trigger pull, which we'll get to the specifics of here just in a second, it has a laser module that projects. And this integrates with some of the other products that they have on the market that we will come back to when we go into the vault and talk about specifically how it integrates with some of the other things that Mantis does. Although this is not a Glock brand Glock, you can see that it mimics the form and function of a Glock 19. It is about the same size. If we were to compare the weight of these guns, this is unloaded, and we'll go ahead and roll in a scale here. The first thing that you notice when you pick up the TitanX training pistol is that it comes off a considerable amount lighter than a real Glock 19. That is with the weighted magazine in there. If I were to take this and put it in there, you can see that without a weighted magazine in there, that it comes off quite a bit lighter. So that's with a quote-unquote full magazine. And I would say that as far as a training pistol is concerned, the weight itself doesn't actually bother me. The thing that is very noticeable is that the balance seems to be very in the hand on this one, and this unit seems to be kind of more top heavy. But you know, that's a severe nitpick, I would say. Now this thing is optics ready. I went ahead and took the liberty of removing these screws off camera so you guys didn't have to sit through that. Off comes plate. As you guys can see, there's a couple different bolt patterns there depending on which optic you want to use. I've been testing this thing with an RMSc pattern optic from Gideon Optics, so there you go. As far as the sights are concerned, they're directly integrated into the polymer slides, so you can't change those out, but they're a Glock standard mimic type thing. And as far as the rest of controls, obviously the slide itself does not operate, but the magazine release does work, and so does the trigger. Speaking of the trigger, looking at just a little touch over, sorry, everything's inverted, just a touch over 5 pounds there on the trigger. So pretty comparable to a standard Glock trigger. The thing that I think is advantageous over having something like this instead of one of the units that like drops into your chamber or something like that is that you don't have to operate the slide every time you want to dry fire your weapon. So you can just sit there and, you know, I don't know, watch a movie or something like that and pick a character on the screen to use as your target every time they come up. And you don't have to sit there and operate the slide every single time you want to do a trigger squeeze. There are two more things that I want to mention. The laser is adjustable depending on your optics. So if you want to use sights versus a raised optic, then you have the option of just taking an Allen key, sticking it in there, and driving that around. If you press this twice, then it will do a constant on, so you can sit there and adjust it without actually having to like squeeze the trigger and test it or anything. So that is capable of doing that. And there is a charging port right there, USB-C in, so you don't have to worry about any batteries rolling around, no proprietary stuff like that. You just stick in your phone charger and you're off to the races and things ready to use. Now, there's one other thing I want to mention, is this is actually the second iteration of this product that has come here for eval. So the prototypes that showed up, the folks at Mantis listened to some feedback, and there were some holster compatibility issues with some, not all holsters, but as you can see here, this is my NSR, and it goes right in there. It locks up just fine. So holster compatibility should be pretty much across the board. You might find some strange ones here or there that don't fit, but you can expect that whatever you're using, it's a likelihood that it's going to work. So let's see this thing in action. Welcome to the VSO Lockup. It has been some time since we've done a video in here, and for today I have gone ahead and turned the lights off down that way, and I'm getting messages on my phone. That is relevant. We will get to it here in a second, but I've turned the lights off down there so that you guys can easily pick up what's going on with the laser from the Titan. And the Titan, being a laser projecting device, obviously seamlessly integrates with Mantis's Laser Training Academy. I've got a full video on Laser Training Academy. We're not going to rehash it here because there's a lot of stuff packed in that thing, but I'll have that video listed in all the relevant places so that you guys can go run it down. Now, you'll notice that the Titan has laser on all the time, and that is because we are still doing that blinking light thing. But if we push this again, then that comes off, and we're back to what we were doing before, right? But when, and I'm going to see if I can time this up properly, I'm about to enable the Mantis X function, and what I have here is an original Mantis X, and this is just a module that goes on your weapon. So it doesn't matter what kind of gun, but it's got accelerometers and a whole bunch of other stuff in there that communicates to your device, and it tells you what you're doing wrong, what you're doing right, gives you pointers on how to fix your weapons handling in the instances immediately surrounding your trigger squeeze. So, timed out. Beeping light. Go ahead and enable that. And if I go into my Mantis X here, blue light. So I've got this thing set up on open training, and we're just going to go ahead and start. And to start out with, I'm just going to fade the gun left to right and do some trigger squeezes. And up and down. It has recorded a whole bunch of data there that says, if I click on one of these, for instance, it says breaking the wrist. And that would be indicative if we knew that I wasn't, you know, fishing it around while I was doing it. But if I were to, for instance, go back in here and just concentrate on the little cat that my wife drew on the whiteboard over there, it says, great shot. So the concept with this is that you can do whatever you want with this as far as training drill is concerned. And then you get an idea from this by going in here where those map. If you're running cameras like we are here, you can literally sync those side by side and see which datum ended up being the bad one. There's a whole bunch of bad ones on there and only really one good one. And that brings me up to critiques. I've decided that we're going to do critiques outside today while the dog is doing his business because it's raining today. And that means
that I will want to spend as little time being pessimistic as possible, and we can get you guys out of here, because I've listened to you guys. Okay, sometimes I get a little bit too long-winded. So my one critique of the TitanX is that I think that Mantis is leaving something on the table that they shouldn't leave on the table. This is, again, a training pistol, but it doesn't really compete with something like the blue gun. That's a thing that is designed to be robust, that can be tossed around and beat around, dropped on the ground, and all that sort of stuff in like combatives and more athletic firearms training courses and stuff like that. The TitanX can't really do that. A couple people landing on it, or a couple people spiking it or dropping it off the top of a building or something like that, and it's not gonna go well. So what I think that they ought to do is go back in Generation 2 and make it with a metal slide. And that would also address some of the stuff that we talked about as far as like the balance nitpicking I talked about earlier. It would get the weight up a little bit, and it would make it compete with those things. And the reason I bring that up is, remember that we're talking about businesses that are going to use these. So when we're talking about those combatives courses and more athletic training firearms courses, these are businesses, and they also have limited budgets, which means that they are going to need training aids that are the most versatile that they can be. So if you want to push your stuff into those training courses, this could be a gateway to do that. And they could do it by offering the most versatile training aid that can handle the combatives, the being beat around, the dropped off stuff, people landing on it, etc., but also do all the other stuff that Mantis offers. And I just think that they're leaving something on the table when they don't need to be, and they could be wiping the floor with everybody. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. The dog is done. I'm going to get inside because now I'm soaking wet. He is so camera shy, it's unbelievable.